I'm thrilled to welcome back Shoshanna Blanca, aka Jesus Christ Pornstar, daughter of God, stage reader second coming, pleasure and prayer professional, Jesus freak in the bedroom, psychic, sexologist, model, messianic porn star. Wow, there's a lot there. I've been lucky enough to talk to Shoshanna before and to explore some of the projects she's working on. And today we thought we'd talk a little bit about Shoshanna's relationship with psychedelics and how they perhaps have guided the path she's sort of chosen to take. So if you're okay, for people that perhaps aren't as au fait or don't necessarily understand how psychedelics work and what they give, could you give a brief sort of summary as to how your experience with psychedelics started and what psychedelics bring to you?
Well, there are many different kinds of psychedelics. There's psychedelics that people use more recreationally, like LSD, mushrooms, MDMA. Then there's plant medicine, which there's overlap now. People serve those kinds of drugs in ceremonies, but when people think of plant medicine, they more often think of ayahuasca or
Mhm.
iboga or 5-MeO DMT. Although that's from a toad, but it still gets looped. What's the word? Put into the same
Yeah,
category.
yeah.
So, yeah, it really depends on the kind of psychedelic that is being used, what effect it has. But generally, the effect is that you look at your life like from a more grand scale, the bigger picture. You step outside yourself and look at situations in your life more objectively. You might uncover childhood memories, or not necessarily memories you'd forgotten, but experiences you hadn't really thought about and how they impacted you. And often there can also be a physical healing. For some medicines, there's a purging process, like with ayahuasca, where it causes you to vomit, and people often afterward feel very refreshed, very energetic, like their mood is lifted, like they have more skip in their step, and more inspired and more clear on what they want to do with their life. So the first people debate whether MDMA is a psychedelic. I think that it is. It's often grouped into psychedelic research. That was the first psychedelic I ever used. It was a very small amount at a music festival in 2016. And I remember telling, just sitting down at this music festival, and another woman who was with me gave me it. And I just remember telling her, I struggle with three different things: workaholism, disordered eating, and what was the third? Compulsive saving. And I realized it's really one thing: that I don't love myself and I don't approve of myself. And I need these things to feel good about myself. And it was like those neuroses were lifted temporarily, where I remember the next day getting an ice cream sundae and not feeling bad about it, and just feeling like light and love around me. And I took mushrooms once after that, when I was in Amsterdam, and I got truffles. And that was also a recreational experience that I didn't, at first, it wasn't the first experience, but the second one that was really good, where I conversed with different parts of myself, and it was like I was making peace with every side of myself. My first plant medicine retreat was an ayahuasca retreat in late 2017, and that just showed me how different I was from the image I had of myself, of my mind. I kind of thought of myself as someone who was very closed off, who was a very hard worker, kind of robotic, not really interested in people. And then I saw that really I was a sweet, warm person who was meant for a life of connection. And I shared those three experiences because those are like the three first, and since then I've participated in many sessions and ceremonies. But I think those are exemplary of what psychedelics can do, which they can show you who you really are, why you're doing what you're doing, what in your life is helpful, what habits need to be broken, um, and just help you make greater peace with yourself.
Is it sometimes hard to interpret the message you're getting, or do you find it's always very clear for you?
The message, so it depends. I sent you some recordings of trips where
Yeah.
the message is kind of buried. I remember there's this one trip, I think I called the file DMT cock
Yep. The first one, yeah.
because I was on mushrooms and MDMA, and the facilitator, we were talking about sex and spirituality, and I was talking about a sexual experience where I left my body, and she she said to me, "It sounds like your partner had a DMT cock. He took you through all your chakras." And the whole ceremony, for some reason, that stuck, and I kept yelling, "Sign me up for a DMT cock. Sign me up." And it was just really funny. Like I remembered that the next day. I was like, I know I just kept saying, "Sign me up for a DMT cock." What do you think I was saying? And she was like, "I think you were saying that you were looking for like union with another person, like being intertwined with another person." Because I was also yelling out phrases like tantric eye gazing, cats, and it was cacao ceremonies. And I was circling around this topic of love and connection and togetherness and living in community, and also
Mm.
having a sexual relationship where there are no walls, where you can truly be yourself with the other person. And it came out in that phrase. So that's why I sometimes record the trips or write in a journal during them, because sometimes it is like what just happened, but you can decipher it afterward.
Mm. And you sent through some of the poetry that you've sort of written afterwards and about them, and it's just does the poetry come from the experience itself? You sort of feel compelled to write the poems, because the poems are very powerful. They're very sort of specific. Is it the trip that guides your hand when you're writing the poems?
Sometimes it's the feeling, like the afterglow of the trip, where you just are opened up and there's this sense of magic in the air, this sense of magic is possible. And I think the poetry I've written after my trips has that theme to it, the theme of magic. Which did I send you? Did I send you nameless numbers, faceless coins?
You sent me the Schrodinger's cat one. I remember
Hmm.
materials and methods, and
Oh yeah, that was after a trip. Actually, the theme of
one called dropping. The one I liked actually about was dropping acid with a guy from Tinder. Just
yeah,
very
no,
descriptive.
that's a favorite of mine too. I want to publish that one.
You should definitely.
It's surprisingly difficult to find journals that will publish your poetry, but that one, yeah. So I was thinking of a different one, Nameless Numbers, Faceless Coins, which is on my YouTube channel. I wrote
Mhm.
that right after or not right after, probably like a week or two after an iboga ceremony, where it felt like I was connecting with a soul that I was about to meet. And so it starts off, there's a smile on your face that reminds me of the cloud, brings us back to the light amid the darkness down in this solid liquid gas town. It was like I was connecting with a person in heaven that the poem was for, who I hadn't met yet, and like a soulmate. And it was funny how details in the poem. This is really funny. For some reason, the next line of the poem goes, "The devil dwells up north with the winter free from sun, makes you think you are the dark, makes you want to scream and run, even from battles you have won. The devil dwells up north." He had this other chick he was seeing who like lived in Northern California, and he kept saying, "Oh, I'm going up north. I'm going up north." So it was almost like the poem was foreshadowing this relationship. But yeah, the set of ones I wrote about Schrodinger's cat came after a trip where the theme of Alice in Wonderland kept coming up. Well, it was more like I felt like Alice in Wonderland, and I
Mhm.
watched the movie afterward, and I just like had this sense of magic in the air, this sense of like I had gone up to heaven and I'd conversed with fairies, and I realized that they were all real, and I wanted to like write something that captured their energy, this like fairy energy that I'd connected with.
There were a couple of lines in the one about dropping acid with a guy from Tinder was, and two of the lines that you wrote in particular, I just wanted to ask you about. One, so he says, "Sex is like hunting, swallowing, consuming. Men are afraid of female desire." And I wondered what you mean by men are afraid of female desire.
That poem was written after a date where I indeed dropped acid with a guy from Tinder. It was a third date. We kind of became psychonauts together. We microdosed mushrooms on our second date. We ended up doing a few ceremonies together. And I remember we were both really nervous taking acid together on like the third time we met up, but we really had a connection, a strong connection, and we felt like we wanted to share that experience together. So it was this really funny day. We were on Venice Beach and we took the acid, and I was seeing little mermaids in the sand, and we were talking about death and like all these dark topics. And at one point I was afraid I was getting sunburned, and he like put some sunscreen on my face, and we exchanged this look as if we were an old couple who like it was just so tender and beautiful. And the trip kept oscillating between those moments and feeling like we're strangers who don't trust each other. I remember us cuddling and feeling scared that he was going to rape me. And then I remember him telling me afterward that he was scared to look into my eyes because he was scared I was going to suck his soul, which I thought was interesting because there's this archetype. It relates to this tattoo on my shoulder. I call it the octopussy. It's it's a symbol of female sexuality as something engulfing, like an octopus, something that like swallows you. And so I was reflecting about how we both had that experience of being afraid of each other's desire and each other's power. And I feel like what I had access to most was a fear of male desire and power, a fear that he could rape me. But I realized there was something going on his end too, that the medicine brought up a fear of me somehow taking him, or I don't quite understand it. Do you think that men are afraid of women's power or women's desire?
That's a great question. I think a lot of men are very uncertain and insecure when a woman demonstrates her desire. I think historically and through the patriarchy and just societally, the typical standard is that the man is the one that has desires, and the woman accedes to those desires and gives the man what he wants. I think when a strong, passionate, amazing woman demonstrates her desire, I think a lot of men feel I don't know, insecure about that really. So I think yeah, I'm not sure if I'm explaining that very well, but I think that's what it is, that men recognize all the way back to Eve just how powerful woman is as a being, as an entity, particularly as a sexual being. But then when they are confronted by that, it's like, oh my goodness. Which is why guys historically have gone to strip clubs and lap dance bars, because they can see this sort of vision of womanly beauty and can interact with it, but it's very safe. It's very sterile in a way. But when they're actually faced with a woman that has a desire, a woman that has passion, a woman that knows what she wants, I think men are, okay, what do I do with this? I think that's what happens.
How come? Because then the men feel inadequate?
Yeah, because the men are used to taking, I guess. I'm not in an abusive way. Hopefully not in an abusive way, but I think men are much more used to dictating how sex goes. Typically, I know this is a law of averages. Men are the ones that tend to instigate sex more. There's always this belief that men are always ready with their their hard penises to take what they want, whereas women have got to be, they've got to be sort of persuaded and got to feel loved, and have got to feel some erotic sort of charge, etc. And then when and then when a woman's there and sort of saying, look, yeah, take me, or a woman perhaps, yeah, and he's saying in the poem about leaving sort of marks on his neck, and a woman bites a man. I mean, that's so erotic, it's so sexual, it's so sensual. I would love that. But I think a lot of men are very, well, gosh, she's taking more from me than I'm comfortable giving, really, which is, yeah, not all men, but I do think some men are, yeah, uncomfortable with that, sadly. Have you had experiences with men that are much more comfortable with being with a woman that has desires and knows what she wants, or is it something that you found difficult in terms of relationships you've had?
Yeah, they don't seem to be the majority, but there are definitely men, especially in the non-monogamous community, the play party community, the kink community, and like alternative sexual communities. They seem to be more comfortable with that when they're less into gender roles and less into the manosphere stuff of like um do you know what I'm talking about? Like there's all these ideas circulating right now
Yep.
about like high value men and high value women, and how like men should be playing a game to
Yeah, yeah.
get as much as they can from women, and not give. And so yeah, there's a lot of that on dating apps. There's a lot of playing games, a lot of like how much can I get her to do? How many women can I get without them knowing about each other? But so I try to stay in the communities that I described, and also some of like the new age spiritual community. There are some men who are goddess worshippers, which I'm slightly uncomfortable with. I don't think we should reverse patriarchy and just worship the goddess, but I think I've been acknowledged as a goddess by some men, and I feel very seen. Like there's some men, there's this one dude I know who we're not a match sexually or romantically, but he likes to just get together with me and like take pictures of me and talk about how I'm a goddess. So I like, of course, I'm always open to that. I feel like women, there's, if you look at the manosphere bros and people like that, they say that women feel entitled to that kind of treatment. I don't think that that I feel entitled, at least. I think that maybe I believe that I've earned that treatment because I am such a conscious, self-aware person, and I intend to be in a relationship, in a dynamic of loving devotion, and so I expect the same. Um, a lot of people are not like that, but I think more women are waking up to that form of relating quicker than men are. And so I always appreciate men who recognize goddesses and want to worship goddesses.
And I think exactly as you said, you put it so well. I think within the kink or the play or the BDSM or the different communities that exist, is far more. What's the right word? I don't think liberal's the right word, but it just seems far more open to see sexuality, intimacy as something quite fluid. And I'm not necessarily talking about gender fluid, but that as well. But I think when men and women as well are very particular about their gender roles and what they do and what they don't do, I think it's, yeah. When I've talked to dominatrix as an example, that they talk about men coming to them wanting to show their submissive side and be submissive, and the men are typically something they really keep hidden and wouldn't dare share with their partner, and because they believe they've got to be the dominant one. But a lot of dominatrix I talk to, they say it's not about it's the men are all coming to them to be pegged or to be beaten or whatever. They're not. They just want to be. They want to submit to woman, as you said, submit to a woman being a goddess for an hour, for 2 hours, for a day, or whatever. And I think that feels a very comfortable space to be in. But I do think, yeah, men, and then men have a fear of how the woman they're with is going to react to that, because not all women, not all women, very very few women, no women are like you. So you are a unique spirit. So I think the way you approach things is perhaps different than a man might find with his traditional partner. So there's always that fear of saying something, asking for something, doing something that your partner thinks, "What are you doing? You weirdo, you pervert." And how it's terrifying to think that. That's why I do think within communities that are much more open about talking about intimacy and relationships and being together, there's much more powerful emotions exist. And I think that's a lot of the things that you're doing now is almost you're in the work that you're doing with your porn work, with the second coming, with all those things. It is very much a physical demonstration or manifestation of feelings, sensations, emotions. And I don't see anybody else doing that. Is that how you? Is that how you describe? I mean, you'll describe it far better than that. But is that how it feels to you that you're giving physical form to the feelings and emotions that you're having?
That's can you rephrase that question? So to the feeling.
Yeah. So in the work you're doing, so a lot of the work you're doing is using your body and your voice together to demonstrate things. A lot of things you do, you're naked or you're topless or you're nude, and you're either singing or you're providing poetry or you're engaged in an explicit acts. And I wonder whether you see that physical act as almost the manifestation of the emotions and ideas and thoughts that you have.
I see some of it as trips come to life. Like some of
Mhm.
it, I had visions of the projects, and some changed from the visions. But I would say that a lot of it, yeah, thoughts and emotions. So, some of it is a way to express pain, to express. I find that it raises my vibration if I get on camera and talk, give an uplifting talk, or sing a high vibration song. It just puts me in a more positive mindset where I feel, I don't know if it's God or if it's just a greater connection with myself, but I feel like I've just told myself. And it's interesting, like the way that nowadays we're usually looking at ourselves on the camera when we are performing. So if you're doing solo content, at least, like usually I'm just in my room and I'm seeing myself record, and it just feels it feels like I'm reinventing myself every second that I see myself. Like I witness myself every time I come to the computer, to the camera. I witness myself changing shape and form and creating something that creates a new iteration of me. And it's really interesting to go back through some of my old videos. I look vastly different in different videos, and I can see how like how it almost reflects how I was feeling at the time. Like I feel like there were like videos I took where I felt really self-conscious, and I feel like I like I look not the best version of myself. And then there are some where I really feel like I'm taking my power back and empowering myself to say whatever I want to. And it felt as if it feels as if I'm taking control of my image in a way that like
Mm.
I'm because part of your image is not just the way you look, it's what you say, it's the message you're conveying. And so I not sure if that answers your
No,
question.
it does. It does. I really like the way you explain that, and I hadn't really thought about it this way, but it's so right. Is that image isn't just about how you look; it's literally about what you're doing, what you're saying, how you're moving, how you're acting. All those things become part of our image. So, are you comfortable with the image you're currently portraying to the world?
It's funny. I feel like I'm portraying many different images, but like I've been doing songs lately just for fun. I
Yeah.
call it Jesus Christ Star, where I sing karaoke versions of different songs, and that's like a slightly darker side of me that I hadn't really expressed before. Then I'm also starting a series called The Matrix, where I talk about topics like AI and how that relates to the apocalypse and robots, and that's like my nerdy side. So it changes every day, and I feel like that's the fun thing about costumes and makeup and things like that, that you can express it and even discover a different side of your personality. But I also noticed like my body image has improved drastically since I started doing this work, because I've sort of I used to hate how I looked in photos and how I looked in videos, and I learned how to actually gain greater control over how I look, like what expressions, etc. And we don't realize, like, we always have a mental image of ourselves in our head when we're walking around, when we're talking to people, and like it matters what image you have of yourself in your head. At least for me, like I feel like I act like a different person when I'm picturing myself as a beautiful person versus like
Mm.
a tired person or a rundown person or like something else. And yeah, it's an interesting experiment to find a way to feel like the hot girl, and then like see how I go about the world with that feeling. It's I hate to be superficial, but it does make a difference. Like if you're visualizing yourself as a hot girl or a hot guy, like you will react to people differently and for the better. And like I used to resist that idea because I feel like it's not about looks, it's about how you feel. But at least the way society is set up right now, most of us, how we feel is based at least partly on how we look.
I like that. And I think that comes back to the way you defined image, really. So it just, and you're completely right. So if we're in an intimate situation with somebody and we feel great, we look good, we feel good, that intimate encounter is going to be far more enjoyable than if we think, oh God, my stomach looks big when I move like this, or my arse is flat, or my breasts droop, or my dick's not hard enough, or whatever. When you're feeling like that, the physical encounter you have is, of course, it's not going to be as good. But if you feel good, if you feel hot guy, hot girl, it's just a very different experience, really. Um, so, what response do you get back from people to the variety of work that you do? Because, like you say, it's I don't know. I'm not quite sure how your mind copes. Whether your mind is very compartmentalized, as all little bits, or whether it's just a very big, fluid, amorphous approach to life, and that, like I say, it can be thinking about AI and destruction. It can be thinking about poetry. It can be thinking about songs. It can be thinking about porn. It can be thinking about the second coming. There's so many different things that are there. How do you find people? Let me rephrase it. Do you think are people wary of the complexity of your mind, the depth that you have? Because a lot of people are very good at one thing. They're focused on one thing, and they're either very good porn star, or they're very good poet, or they're very good songstress, or they're very good AI specialist, whatever. But you do it all. So do you think how do people respond to to that, and how do they respond to the different elements of it?
Well, people like to put women in boxes. So I think people, if they're not very sophisticated thinkers, are surprised or intimidated by a woman who defies boxes or who fits into many boxes. People used to, when more of what I was doing was writing, like I was known as a brilliant writer, and I think
Mm-hmm.
people have an image in their head of what a brilliant writer is, like someone who's bookish, intellectual, nerdy. They don't picture that person being a porn star necessarily, or when they hear that someone does porn, they don't think that's someone who's religious or spiritual, or very intelligent. Sometimes there are stereotypes associated with each profession, each way of being, and I like to challenge those stereotypes. Yeah, I like to catch people off guard with the fact I'm also a therapist and a birth doula. I do a lot of different things that people people don't expect that someone would do all of those things, but I think that it is like part of being a well-rounded woman to master like all of these all of these things that are very relevant to real life communication, intimacy, being there for difficult moments. There's a way in which everything fits together, but a lot of people, they have trouble seeing that, so I really like to surprise them and be like, nope, I'm not an airheaded porn star, I'm not like a nerdy um intellectual alone. um and I don't know, do you think it's intimidating to men?
Yes. Sorry to be so blunt, but I think because exactly as you say, men, and I feel terrible talking for 4 billion people, but men have a view of women and a view of different roles. So I do two podcasts. This one, and another one, which is focused on AI and ethics and AI and empathy, etc. And so I was talking to a professor last week, and she was fabulous. She was talking about sex bots and intimacy bots, and how you can have a relationship with an AI, and how you can talk very explicitly to an AI. But somebody listening to that podcast or watching it wouldn't have expected her to sit there naked talking about those things. And she wasn't. But I'm saying there's almost this right. No, she's got to wear a business suit, and they've got to have books behind, and they've all lined up books behind her and stuff, and they're going to be very, very professional and talking about incredibly intimate topics, and whether humans and robots should interact sort of sexually, whether that's on text or in voice or in physical form. So talking about incredibly explicit things, but in this very austere room with books lying on the wall and very sort of formal dress, whatever. But if she'd been sat there naked talking about it, would that have been different? I don't know. But it just wouldn't be expected, really. Um, I didn't ask her. I didn't say that can you take clothes off. It wasn't that kind of conversation. But I don't know whether I think people would just be surprised, really, because I think we sort of try and, because although our brains are amazing, I think a lot of people haven't necessarily really explored what the brain can and should allow us to do, really. I think some of the psychedelic trips you've been on have been an exploration of that. It's gone to the future, it's gone to the past, it's gone to different emotions, different sensations, and it's allowed you to do that. But I think a lot of people, yeah, just stick with what they know, really, what their sort of traditions are. So I think that's, I'm not sure if that answers the question, but I think men are a little bit confused maybe by a woman that is very comfortable in all elements of herself, physically and mentally.
What's saddest to me is when men stereotype you, if you're a sex worker, as like just a slut who doesn't want to be taken out to dinner or shown chivalry or manners. I had an experience recently where I started dating someone who was really nice to me, except he kept trying to push for a hookup and kept, when I said no, kept bringing up, like, so why do you do porn? Like he was expecting more because of that. And I told him, like, drunken hookups are not my game. I'm looking to actually be taken out. And he again tried to get me to hook up with him, and when I said maybe next week, he started sending me videos of him masturbating, and I'm like, dude, why do you think this is okay? Like, because I'm a porn star? That hurts my feelings. I'm like, I deserve flowers just as much as anyone, not dick pics. And he just wrote, I apologize. But I think, like, trying to start a movement for women to school men like that, to just to say those things out loud, because I used to just block and ignore, but then the resentment would boil up because I hadn't said the thing. So, yeah, now I just say the thing. So, I also told him, I blocked him, and I told him if he wants to make it up to me, he needs to mail me a letter or a present.
It's
But
interesting because I've been really lucky to talk to a lot of female porn stars, a lot of content creators, new models, etc. And all of them, all of them have been absolutely fascinating, and a lot of them are incredibly knowledgeable and insightful and thoughtful. And I think a lot of them, a bit like you, a lot of them have struggled to form relationships outside of the industry. There's a lot of time they say, well, when we start dating a guy and he finds out I'm sort of make porn, he's like, oh god, wow, I'm dating a porn star, isn't that amazing? And then very quickly it becomes, I don't want you to do porn with guys anymore. I don't want you to do porn with girls anymore. I want you to do only solo content. And it's like, okay. It becomes something that the men feel they have sort of stepping in control. But yeah, I've never talked to a porn star before doing this podcast, and the first couple of people I talked to were, and just fascinating, just absolutely delightful people. I can happily imagine having a lovely dinner with and introducing to my family, and just going for walks with and talking, and just because somebody happens to take their clothes off or has sex on camera, it's, I don't know, it's just our sort of religious societal barriers to seeing that as something that's normalized. Really, we see it as something strange. And like you say, we see that person, are they want to do that because they have to do it? They can't. They're obviously too dumb to do anything else. That all they've got is their sort of their tits and ass. That's all they've got to sort of work with, and that's, and which from the people that I know, it's terribly sad. It's really bad that we don't see that things in that way and expect somebody, because they're a porn star, immediately to throw all our clothes off and get on our knees. Or it just seems ridiculous, really. But
I think it's
sadly,
the
that's where we
opposite.
are.
I think most of us know that we're desirable people, so we're going to have higher standards. And a lot of porn stars, if they're doing partner scenes, they're not that thirsty. They're not that, like, horny or desperate. So they're probably, like, going to have higher standards, not the other way around.
Definitely, definitely. So, are you as comfortable clothed as unclothed? Are you very comfortable in your body now?
No, I would say, to be honest, I still feel really weird about being naked on the internet. I think because it just, like, came to me in a vision, and it was so, like, divinely inspired. I'm not even 100% clear on why I'm doing it. Like, I think, I wish that we were treated better, that sex workers were treated better, to the extent that I could have more control, for instance, to not be pirated by other tube sites when I put things on Pornhub, to be able to monetize more of my work, to be able to say put it on OnlyFans without needing the Pornhub to get traffic to the OnlyFans. There are certain downsides to being naked on the internet. And when I say, like, I feel a little uncomfortable with it because I'm still, like, it's funny. It's not that I have no idea why I'm doing it. I think it's just, like, one of those instances where I just did it because I felt inspired, and the reason is coming to me afterwards. Some of it is for me, like getting more comfortable with my own body. Some of it is to to call attention to the fact that we're all naked on the internet in some way. A lot of people who judge porn stars are themselves naked emotionally, if not physically, on social media, oversharing, embarrassing themselves. I think the message I want to give to people is there's nothing to hide, and the body is nothing to hide or to be ashamed of. And yeah, there is this push pull though between like, I really dislike not being compensated fairly and not having full control over my image, and not being worshipped, not having my body worshipped and revered by everyone who sees it. That's something that is out of your control as an adult entertainer, is like how other people then use your image. People then can have a mental image of you in their head and jerk off to it every day, and you will not be compensated at all. So I dislike that part. But that was happening to me before anyway, because like I had a lot of people sexualizing my work as a sex writer and educator. So it like feels, I feel like we need larger reform on like the porn industry, people's control over their image, and that more people were willing to pay for porn. I think it's like a larger societal issue. And I like what I hope I can do for now is make Pornhub a more wholesome place by like, you know, talking about topics that are high vibration and just coming at it with a respect for my body that is not necessarily like encouraged by everything on there. But yeah, I do have mixed feelings about it because of the way that other people see it. But I also think that's what I'm pushing at. That's um, part of my project is to challenge this idea that if you are naked on the internet, that's a sign of disrespect. That's a sign of you are lower than other people. I want women and everyone to be able to be naked or dressed however they want and be just as cherished, just as revered, and not be shit on verbally because they are whores or sluts or whatever, you know, whatever name you want to give people who are lower in that way. But yeah, this like for the listeners, like we do not get compensated nearly enough, and that's part of the issue. So I'd encourage you to support me somehow. There will be links to my OnlyFans, I believe. So that's one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what you sort of hope people find is that there's lots of porn out there, lots of naked people out there doing lots of fabulous things, but I think when somebody's actually talking and sharing and making you think, hopefully people stumble across your work and then think, oh, I'd like to explore this more and go to the channel and find what it is you're doing, what the project is. Do you want to move into creating content with other people, or do you find it hard to find the right people to create content with?
I've had 3 collaborators. One was really fun. This is my cat, by the way.
Yes, I guess so. She's very, very keen to be involved.
He's not a collaborator. I've one he oh, it was a while ago. My friend, we created a stage name for him, Tarzan, and we just did vocal recordings, like recordings of him fingering me and like the sounds that I was making. And I did some posts on my OnlyFans uncovering Eve that were about evolutionary biology and why women moan during sex. So that was fun. And then I did one. I have another collaborator I call Healing Hands. And we did one where he had crosses on his hands and massaged me and whispered
Yes, I think I saw that one. Yeah.
pussy. And then we did one where he was feeding me sushi. We want to upload a few others. I believe he's editing them. There was one where we demonstrate orgasmic meditation, a sexual technique, and then one. Oh, I started a series called Slut Shaming. He and I actually started that, where we have conversations on camera about past sexual experiences of ours and what we learned from them. Um, I'm excited about that. Actually, I've done it with two different people now, and there was one other collaborator I had. Oh yeah, June Love. Well, we do more modeling things, but we have a few photos that are in magazines now where we're my favorite was last time he had a nun costume and was like worshiping me, kneeling and praying, and we did one where I spanked him for the sins of men. So yeah, I enjoy things like that. A lot of, again, like immature men on dating apps are like, oh, can we collaborate? But they just, they don't have a creative vision other than let's fuck. I like to do things that are more different and interesting and like push forward some kind of conversation about sex positivity, body positivity, spirituality, or just like educate people on women's sexual pleasure, or on how to have great sex in some way.
It's important because a lot of, probably more than half people are not having great sex, or maybe even good sex, but just having the sex that they've always had. And it's not something that either man, woman, 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 man, man, whatever the dynamic is, are enjoying really. So then the more we can talk about what good sex, I wouldn't say looks like, what good sex feels like, I think the better. I think, yeah, if you can get that message across, then you change a lot of people's lives, really. One thing you mentioned about your thoughts about AI, and that's my other huge passion. And I wondered, well, let me make it simple. What are your thoughts on AI?
What concerns me lately is people talking like AI. I keep, or especially over email. So they say, I'm sure you've heard this idea that technology is causing us to lose our humanity and we act differently. We act with less empathy when we're communicating in writing or through a screen, especially, than we do face to face. And I think AI is exacerbating that because people are sending emails based on AI. I've been really disgusted lately by people emailing me in ways that are very clearly from AI and not really responding to me if I like. Oh, there's one magazine that interviewed me twice, and they definitely use AI in their emails. I'll try to like, they just held my interview for like 6 months now. And whenever I follow up, I'm like, hello, I'd appreciate an update on this. Thank you. And I just hear back, you're welcome. Like, it's clearly not a human being reading this and actually hearing what I'm saying. I also once did an interview that was run through AI, and my answers were completely changed. I made the magazine do it again, thankfully, but it basically took all my answers and ran them through an AI filter, so they all sounded really generic. And like, for instance, one question was like, where do you get your self-esteem or like your confidence? And I think I went into like a lot of detail about being shamed for doing porn and having body image issues and overcoming that. And it just changed it to like, I got my confidence from situations where my confidence was undermined. Like incredibly generic,
Oh,
meaningless drivel. It also made things up. It said I had a project called the Mirror Workshop, which I don't. Um, so anyway, it's not just that, but yeah, people being really cold and just I'm afraid that using ChatGPT and other forms of AI so much is causing us to like think and talk like AI instead of actually using our hearts and showing compassion, or even like thinking through a situation or listening to the other person. And like my theory, it's funny, I was talking to a friend from my messianic temple about this. He said he thought AI could be the false messiah, that like it's almost like this false voice of God. Like we think it's objective, the voice of reason, and it's not. It's just a certain system trained on very specific ways of thinking and behaving that are not always the kindest or most compassionate ways.
I think there's a lot there, and I think AI. I think for a lot of people, AI has many of the traits that people would cite a religion has. That there are certain groups. There's probably like there's sort of six frontier AI. So imagine those are like six religions. There are sort of six sort of CEOs, typically white middle-aged guys that are sort of they're the messiahs for those companies. People are slaves you're following them. People asking the most complex and intimate questions of AI, and especially and he does give an answer. So whereas with religion you can pray for an answer, with AI you can get an answer. Literally, it'll tell you. It's not saying it's a right or wrong answer. It's just it is an answer. I think I do 100% agree that I think a lot of people, well, not a lot of people. I think people like you that are wise to it see the fact that this is almost becoming this is almost a false prophet in a way. That it's becoming something that people think has the answers that they want, and we've seen lots of examples. And I'm still not quite sure where I am on this about people having relationships with their AI. So people that perhaps either do have a partner, don't have a partner, have a very intimate relationship with their AI. The AI becomes their lover in a way, in the same way that maybe years ago we used to write letters to somebody, and we used to write love letters. We can do that now with AI, backwards and forwards, and we'll get to a stage very very soon where that AI intimate relationship can be embodied in a physical presence. And I think we're a few years away from the sort of cinema, sort of sex bots that we sort of see. But yeah, I think that's likely to come. Does that fill you with horror, or something quite exciting, or where do you sit on sex bots? Don't sit on them, but what are your thoughts on that?
I'm a bit disturbed by the way in which sex bots tend to be female and submissive. It makes me sad that men wouldn't prefer a real woman with her own thoughts and feelings. And I know the conversation is more complicated than that. I'm sure that I know there are male sex bots. It just seems like it's reflective, though, of a gender dynamic where men cannot find a woman to sleep with, or at least not a woman who responds to all his needs. And so this robot is there to fulfill those needs. Something about that is really creepy to me, I think. And then I do wonder if what I've noticed lately is that a lot of women have trouble finding men who respect them, and I think it could potentially discourage respect of women as their own beings rather than as objects, to have a way to have a female that is just subservient and literally does not think for herself. Do I think that that's, affecting most people? No, this is still like a fringe community that is, and a lot of them are just nerds who are interested in artificial intelligence and how humanoid can we make a robot. So there's also an identity called technosexual, which is people whose primary sexual relationship is with technology. and a lot of it, a lot of that community is marginalized people whose sexuality is shamed by other people. So I think in a way, all the advances in technology are cool and interesting, but I think there's already a creepy tendency in society to value like mindless women, minds, or like women who do not think for themselves. And I just would not want, I think in a time when objectification of women is already a problem, I don't know if it would be a healthy thing for sex robots to go mainstream.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's interesting what you say, and I know it is still relatively niche in terms of the physicality of it, but I do think there's some research in the paper recently, which is talking about the number of people that use AI to not only write their profile but create their messages if they're using Tinder or Bumble or Hinge or whatever. So they create my profile as AI creates a profile, and then rather than me create a message, like I want to send a message to Shoshanna, ideally I want to go to sleep with me. What do I do? And the AI will create the message. And so when you actually meet the person, you've never actually spoken a word to them because the only conversation you've had with them has been an AI conversation. That's what I think is kind of scary is just how much AI is used in day-to-day life, whether that's applying for a job, being rejected for a job, putting your Hinge profile, your Twitter profile, your whatever else. I think that's I used to love LinkedIn for lots of business things, but now all LinkedIn posts are written by AI. You can tell they have dashes in and they have colons in and they have random sort of two-word sentences, and it's just really poor. So I think that's a danger that it just becomes just accepted. Imagine that your first date you have with somebody in person, you've never spoken a word to them, you've just been talking to their AI. I mean, it's kind of creepy, but and it's so the best of it.
Yeah, in my experience, GPT is a terrible writer. Like it's offensive to me the way I've at times tried to enlist its assistance to write things. I'll, put in something that I wrote and it'll just add in like all these extra words and phrases, couch all the things I'm saying, like just it's just not good writing. And I think it would be a shame if if that were just if the internet were taken over by that, because it's not very intelligent. Maybe there are programs that are more intelligent, but I also it almost like puts everything in like business speak,
Yeah.
like or almost like legal speak is what I noticed. Like when I tried to enlist its help with writing, it keeps adding things like allegedly or like
I can understand that. Mm. And we are seeing more and more AI created porn now as well, which tends to be they tend to go to the extremes of very very odd things that aren't physically possible or aren't physically enabled. But I think we'll start and probably the same with mainstream cinema. We'll see more and more AI generated films, AI generated porn, which again sort of just takes away from the intention of the person, the human person that's creating the porn. It's just becomes something that somebody's programmed, which then, yeah, it again, it doesn't feel very, it doesn't sit very comfortably, really.
One of my friends, Noelle Perdue, she studies porn, and she pointed out like we should stop using phrases like deep fake porn the same way we don't say revenge porn, because it's almost like putting a crime, which is stealing
Yeah.
somebody's image and misusing it or using it without their permission as just another kind of porn, and it isn't. Um, yeah, this industry is going to need to change a lot because it feels like there are so many legal, so many areas that and issues and questions that are not addressed legally. And it feels like there's right now so many people who are on OnlyFans or the like. Like, I think we should all band together and push for reform that like requires that we get paid well and that our work does not get stolen.
Yeah, definitely. It's like I said, that's what it is. It's work. It's content. It's creation. It's what somebody's doing. It's not something that should be given or expected for free, really. So but I don't want to take up your whole day, but I do, but it's not fair. But what are your upcoming projects, thoughts about the next few months? What does the next few months hold for you?
The next few months, well, I'm planning more events around my books actually, which
Cool.
is unusual to do when I'm a year out of the publication date. But my last book, Eve's Blessing, I'm going to Providence, Rhode Island to do a reading at Brown University in September. Then I'm going to do more book events in October in San Francisco.
Mhm.
Till then, I'm working on a PhD in clinical sexology, and I'm doing a dissertation on religious sex workers to learn more about how people reconcile their faith with their work. And what else? I'm still seeing a lot of clients as a therapist, and I want to do more collaborations in the porn industry and push out, yeah, just keep pushing out my message of Jesus Christ Pornstar and giving people the freedom to be Jesus freaks in the bedroom, to be freaks in the bedroom and know Jesus loves them.
Wasn't that what it said? It said it was created in His image. So presumably, the things that we feel, things that we think, things that we do, are things that He created us to do. But I do think there is a lot of shame and stigma associated around, not necessarily around sex, but around enjoying sex. It seems to be still a bit of a stigma, which is very sad, really. Would you write a book as Shoshanna Blanca? So the books you've written before your and your other persona, but would you craft something as Shoshana?
I don't know. I kind of want to, but it Susanna Weiss has all the credentials. I still am not sure how they all will fit together, but
Yeah.
I think that would be cool because I feel like that is when people hear that name, or at least when I do, I think of that as my porn star name and not as my like scholar name or writer name. And I just talked about wanting to not be put in boxes and show people can be both. So that would be a good way to do that, to have writing or maybe even my dissertation under that name, but I am still not sure. I think eventually it won't matter so much because people will know that Susanna Weiss is Shoshana Blanca. It was added to my Wikipedia page, and
Okay.
I think there's eventually going to come a time I'm still like a little bit worried about my work, how it'll affect my work as a therapist. But I think there's going to come a time when I'm just going to want to be known as Jesus Christ Pornstar to the world, because that's like a title. I'm surprised no one else has taken it before. That's like a title that I think everyone will remember, and that like actually,
It's hard to forget.
feels like the goal is to like make myself a celebrity, and I feel like just being Jesus Christ porn star makes you a celebrity because you're the next iteration of Jesus Christ superstar.
It is. It's very obviously. It's very intentional. It's very provocative, and people are going to have a view one way or the other. So it's. Having talked to you in both guises as Susanna and as Shoshana a couple of times now. It almost feels to me, and this isn't worth anything, but it feels to me that almost Shoshana is a freer version of who you are, as in a more expressive version. It's like almost like, yeah, you can sort of step out of any shadows that might exist, where you can truly communicate who you are and as you are, if that makes sense. So you just feel like the two people feel quite different, although obviously it's the same person. But yeah, Shoshanna, there's very much a passion for communicating in a very ethereal but also earthbound way. That probably makes no sense whatsoever. But yeah, do you know what I mean? So it feels that Shoshanna is a very expressive and emotive and kind and generous and warm spirit. Not saying that Susanna's not, but it's just almost, this is a very good public manifestation of who you are. So, yeah, for what it's worth.
I feel like you just channeled that. Like you just read me intuitively.
Oh, nice. That's good. Well, I feel I'm getting. I love talking to you. I've never talked to a guest as much as I have to you. And no, it's fascinating. It makes me really think as well about about things, and like you were saying before, about what men desire, how men understand women's desire, what it makes a man feel if a woman acts and behaves in a certain way, and how a man should treat a woman, what a man should feel about the woman he's with or wants to be with, and how he should demonstrate his feelings and emotions and love and desire for her, really. So yeah, these are topics that people don't talk about, sadly. But it feels so important. It really does feel like a really important part of our lives, that we can understand each other, we can understand what desire is, we can understand what love is, understand what emotion is. And I think you're doing a good job of that. So keep it up.
Thank you.
No, it's a pleasure. Right, I'll let you go and enjoy your day. Thank you for coming on again, and I look forward to talking to you next time. I'm sure I know there'll be a next time, so it just feels that it's the right thing to do. So no, I appreciate your time.
Mauricio, say hi.
It's very just calm, chilling out, seeing what's going on. I like the cat. I feel like I've got the cat's approval. I like that.
Aw.